Now I'm 100 days I haven't drank at all, but over the last 2 years I really haven't drank that much. It's something that I don't find fulfillment and fun in anymore. And as I'm doing that, I'm finding that all these new things are revealing themselves to me. Things that I've always wanted in my life. And is it because I'm not drinking? I don't know. But I'm stepping more into the group of people that I think I need to be surrounded with.
I was never an alcohol drinker, just beer, whatever. 2 beers at dinner, beer here, beer there. And then I had a conversation actually with one of the biggest heart surgeons in the country. He was like, yeah, I stopped drinking. He's like, I have a glass of wine at night, 2 glasses of wine, and the cognitive difference of not doing that versus doing that is tangible. Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Vinny Brusco Show podcast. Subscribe to the channel and follow along the journey of the show as we dive into self-help, personal development, and have conversations with amazing people on how to navigate this wild world that we live in. On this week's episode, I'm joined by Sean Degnan. Sean is an entrepreneur. He is the owner of Sale House in Tarrytown, and he is also the co-founder of Ace Sanctuary, where Action Cultivates Excellence, where Sean and his partner, Dave Regina, are working together to help guys tap into the best ultimate version of themselves through their networking events, their dinners, and through their summits. Prior to the episode, Sean and I got in a workout, hit up a cold plunge, hit a sauna, and had a monster breakfast. So we were geared up. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Sean Degnan. Enjoy.
What's up, guys? This is Sean Degnan. I am chilling at the Vinny Brusco Show. Check me out, acesanctuary.com, the Sale House Tarrytown, and AI1solutions.com. We'll check you soon.
And here we go.
So welcome, man. Thank you so much for doing this. This is, I feel like I've only known you for a very short period of time, but I also feel like this is already long overdue.
Yeah.
In a weird way. If you just move up a little bit, just to, you got to kind of eat the mic a little bit. I feel like it's like, again, I think I've known you for 2 months, 3 months maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
And it's already a conversation that's long overdue.
It feels that way to me too. It was definitely like something that's been on my mind ever since I started, obviously met you, but then listening to the show a bit more, having a couple of different guests on, Todd, guys like that. And,
yeah.
It's cool to be in here. I feel like I'm in like some different world and in the pod shed here. I love it.
I get that quite often, and thank you. I always say, and people are probably tired of me hearing me say this, but this is what it's like to be inside my brain. It's almost like if you watch Doctor Who, to nerd out for a second, his mode of moving, his vehicle is a telephone booth. And he goes inside of it. It's small. It's a telephone booth. When you open it, it's gigantic. So from the outside, it looks like this rickety little shed that you might die in. But then you kind of come in, you're like, oh shit, this is kind of legit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the logo explains it too, right behind you there.
Yes.
It's just like that is the brain, and it's a beautiful place to dive into it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we met. You posted something for your Ace Network dinner networking event, and I was at the time opening Agora Social Club, and I was like, all right, this might be kind of a cool thing to go to, not thinking anything of it, just as an opportunity to meet with some guys, not sure what I was going to get out of it, but just kind of like, all right, this is something I should probably be doing more of. And first off, the response of the people in that community was amazing, but just the networking and being around the like-minded individuals was so empowering and really like affirming of me and my mission of what I'm looking to build, that it was kind of like, wow, like where have these people been this entire time? It was such a powerful thing, but it was a one-off dinner I went to the first time. And I was like, oh, these are the people I want to be around.
Yeah. It's something that's so crazy to me because I think, as we've talked about so many times, it's like you're always one conversation away from, something beautiful, a new relationship, a new business partnership, whatever it may be. But I think so many people, not just guys in general, but people, they won't go to the event. They won't go, meet someone out at a networking event. They won't have that conversation. They won't mention what they do for work. And you really don't know what you're limiting yourself and holding yourself away from by not doing those things. So, you just being a little skeptical, oh, maybe I should. And then you go, and then look what happens. You develop all these new awesome friendships. And it's been the same for me in my life, and the more I step into going out of my comfort zone, whether it be go to Agora, have, a long conversation with some dudes that I've never met before.
Sure.
or you go to some random event where you don't know what you're going to get away from it. But the more I do it, the more I feel comfortable and the more I gravitate towards the people I want to be with in my life.
Yeah, it also gives you an opportunity to refine the traditional elevator pitch, but not even in a sales way. But like you said, like, and the other thing is, it's weird because when you ask guys what they do, right, they automatically go to their job, right? And in the same time, we don't culturally kind of promote that in some regard. Some guys do, but for the most part, it's kind of like, oh yeah, this is what I do. It's like it's not who I am. And they're almost compartmentalized as two separate beings and you're two separate people for a lot of people. And just being around those like-minded individuals, again, it kind of allows you to harness your ability to talk about what you're doing, really refocus on your goals. I mean, at the last one we were at, we're having a round table and people are talking about how they want to, make X amount of dollars. They want to do this. They want to move here. They want to grow their businesses. And there's no one sitting around like, good luck, buddy.
Yeah.
The response is, how can I help you?
Yeah.
How do we do this together?
Yeah. And that's, I think the beauty behind the network is just like, we've got so many guys that are super successful in all different industries, but those guys are like, all right, who can I introduce you to? We were just in the cold plunge with Vin Maselli, the three of us, and I brought up a brand deal that might happen for me, and bam, he knows a guy and he's going to connect me to this guy and let's lead with this person. And then right there, you're further along the way than you would have been. So it's that type of atmosphere that I think we love to cultivate and that we love to get everyone involved with. But I think it's also the culture, like the culture of what we're trying to promote is more so of just like, that's not allowed. The guys that are going to say, no, you can't do this or good luck or whatever. It's the guys that are going to cheer you on. They're going to help you, pull you to your goals and help you get there rather than the ones that doubt you.
Yeah. And it's funny because those conversations are happening in a way that is an old mindset wouldn't adjust to the way these conversations. I mean, we just had, like I said, we were doing contrast therapy, got a workout in, and then we're having these conversations rather than like sitting in a stuffy office, right? Or like, let's go grab a dinner, let's go grab a coffee. It's like, no. And it's just like the atmosphere is cultivating and creating this type of energy that's allowing us to step into space and speak about what we want to do, what we want to achieve, what our goals are, what our aspirations are. And again, to be surrounded by those people that are like, oh, yeah, let me connect you with this guy. I was Christian, a guy who I met at your group. He came by Agora before we opened and we're talking and we're just kind of talking, talking and talking about our goals and what he wants to do and what I want to do. I was like, yeah, I really want to get some chess lessons here. And he's like, he stops for like 2 seconds. He's like, yep, I know a guy. I'm like, what? Like, a chess teacher? And he's like, yeah, I got a guy. I'll connect you later. Half hour later, text message. Hey, this is Vin. Vin, this is Jithu. He's a chess teacher. Vin's opening Agora. He needs chess lessons, and you're off.
Yep.
And that's how these things grow.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see, and it's amazing to, although like again, late to your evolution of this, but to now be coming to the events, coming to the networking dinners, coming to the workouts. It's so cool to be a part of it, but also watch it kind of grow.
Yeah. And that's like the whole thing that we're in the middle of. It's like, we're fine tuning all this. I mean, we're just like shooting shit in a barrel. And it's like, let's see what works here.
Right.
But I think when you lead with purpose, passion, that those goals that you're, long-term that you want to reach, they come a lot quicker than when you're focused on just a financial number or, some random goal that you're going to put on paper. So I think leading with passion, purpose, and, finding fulfillment in your work, and really trying to impact people is really like what is going to get you to that A to B quicker. So Dave Regina, shout out to Dave, No Snooze podcast. We met in July of this past year, 2023. So we're not even a year into our relationship right now. And we've already had a huge summit. We've hosted, I think, 6 or 7 events together through the ACE network. And it was something that we started by saying, okay, this is something we need in our lives. Right? Which is, I'm sure for Agora, same thing for you. We need this in our lives. So I think other people probably need this in their lives too. And when we started this idea, we just put something out on Instagram and said, hey, we went up to New Paltz, New York, and we were contacted by Steph Madonia, who's our event coordinator. And she basically was like, look, I've got this amazing space. You could have an elite group of guys up here, exclusive though. It can't be, too big. So it was,
But that's also kind of a big part of it, is that it's not too big. It's funny because I facilitate the men's group, and so often your ego wants it to be 35 guys jam packed,
yeah.
right? But then sometimes it's 3, and it's so much more impactful.
Yeah, you lose the impact, I think, sometimes, and like the intimacy of those groups, whether it be Agora or Ace or even Alan Stewart's got a group in Fairfield. Like same thing. They're smaller groups, but those relationships are cultivated like so much stronger. Those bonds are a lot stronger when you're building those. But so we go up to New Paltz, New York. Okay. We film a video just saying, me and Dave, like, hey, we're up in New Paltz, New York. We're hosting this elite exclusive men's retreat, only 25 spots available, blah, blah, blah. Just throwing crap in the universe that we want to happen. But we had no game plan. We had no name for a company. We didn't have any idea what we were doing. We put it out there, and literally within the first hour, we had 20 responses from different guys. Yo, I'm in. And sure enough, I'm sure probably 2 of those guys maybe came.
Sure.
But the need for it, the interest that people had in it was there immediately. So we kind of put that huge goal out there, and it's like let's fill those shoes now.
Yeah. Yeah, act as if is a big part of it. And it used to be, the old mindset was like fake it till you make it. But even in the fake it till you make it aspect of things, you're showing up in a false identity, where I think act as if adds a more positive spin to fake it if you make it, but it also adds this idea of fulfillment, right? If you're acting as if you're the person that is running this ACE summit, which ACE stands for Action Cultivates Excellence. If you're acting as if you're this person that is the head of this company that is putting on this retreat that is exclusive for 25 guys, then chances are very good that the universe, God, source, the force, whatever you want to call it, is almost going to test you to see if you're willing and able to fill those shoes. And in that path of alignment, you're stepping into that act as if process in a completely different way.
Yeah, and I think alignment's the biggest word, because alignment 2 years ago, that was my word of the year, alignment. And it was something that I felt I was so out of touch with, where I wanted to be in my life versus my habits, my friend group, all that stuff. As I started shifting more into the alignment piece of okay, what do I love to do all the time? I love to work out. What do I struggle with? I struggle with vulnerability. I struggle with bridging the gap, our tagline, between vulnerability and masculinity. Those 2 things that I think are so important in building a strong male figure, a strong leader, is bridging the gap between those 2. So all these different things that I know I need in my life, that I know I need to do more of, I wasn't doing enough of. So I found the people that were interested in that, the Joe Kays of the world, the Nick Menendez, and eventually Dave Regina. Those guys I talk to every single day. Okay. Every morning we're on a text thread. They're holding each other accountable. I'm asking them if they got an ice bath this morning. I'm asking them if they hit the workout. They're telling me they did this much of a run today in this amount of time. And it's pushing each other to get better, So as we started shifting more towards that, we started growing the network, and it's something that it's in its infant stages right now, but we're super passionate about it. And again, we're leading with impact and seeking fulfillment rather than trying to just make money off of it.
Yeah, the money thing's a weird relationship, because the money behind it is an energy, right? You can't deny the fact. I went through my phase of money's just a man-made construct. It's you don't need it. And that's true. But it's money equals the freedom, right? Discipline equals freedom, but so does money.
Oh yeah.
Right? There's no denying that. Mm-hmm. So there is this ebb and flow and this dance you have to have with anything that you're pursuing, especially when you want to monetize it and you do want it to be the thing that you're doing, right? It does become this weird balance of okay, are you making money? Are you not making money? You're investing money, you're putting money into it. And in the short-term game, it doesn't make sense. In the short-term game, it's nerve-wracking. It's anxiety-inducing. You're footing the bill for these things. But in the long-term game, potentially, it has the opportunity, if it's done in alignment and done from a place of service, it does have the opportunity to pay 10 times the amount.
Which is what I'm starting to see right now. So we started that summit where we put all this stuff out there. We had Joe Girardi from the Yankees. We had all these big name, speakers and exclusive just things that were going on throughout the whole retreat that cost a lot of money.
Right.
We finished that retreat and we didn't make a ton of money.
Right.
We lost some money.
Sure.
There was no money that was made on that summit, just to be totally clear. Now what we're seeing is people, they have that spark in them. They're interested in what's going on. So we just got contacted by Lululemon a month ago. We just did our partnership workout with Lululemon Westchester, which is like,
right.
Where the hell did that come from? Two nights ago, I get reached out to by the 10,000 brand. And these are new things that are coming. We didn't make the money up front, but now since we were impacting people's lives first, that culture is building. And I think, in my opinion, whatever people believe, God, the universe, God for me, my belief, my passion, my purpose, all that is all coming together now. And I think the fruits of our labor are going to start to show themselves.
Yeah, it's a weird relationship to have because again, the universe doesn't pay your bills in some regard, but it will.
Yeah.
And you have to stay firm in your belief system and firm and authentic to who you are. What was you said you weren't living a life of alignment. What was that consisting of, and how were you able to get into alignment? What were some of the things that you were doing that pulled you away from it, and then what were some of the things that pulled you back into it?
So I grew up in Irvington, New York, in Westchester here, and there was a large family that they owned this huge company down in the Bronx. It was a wholesale produce distribution company, Dorigo, New York. These guys have a massive, massive business and it streams across the country. They ship internationally. They import like from 200 different countries. It's crazy. I was fortunate enough to work with them during college. So I wasn't a student. Like I went to go socialize, play sports. That's all I ever went to school for my entire life. And it just, my attention span wasn't there. My interest wasn't there. I was just like, look, let me build my network. I always wanted to be the most popular guy and like be the best athlete and the whole thing. And I always thought to myself, like, yeah, I do want to be this big Mr. Business guy. Even as a kid, but how do you do that if you're a shitty student, if you have no real tangible business skills, so I was fortunate enough to work with this company when I was in college. So I'm going into my senior year and I finished up my second year working for this company during the summer. And I'm like, what am I going to do when I graduate? I'm like kind of panicking,
What am I doing with my life?
How am I going to make money now? Football's over. I'm not trying to go to the NFL. I'm not trying to go to, play semi-pro and all that stuff. So I had to figure out a path. And I was like, you know what? There's a lot of money to be made in this industry. Let me try this. I started working with them as soon as I graduated. I took over a new division that they were opening. It was called Gotham Fresh, which was a supermarket division, all distribution. So wholesale produce. It was all fruits, vegetables, which is like nuts because I could tell you like if a banana is, been sitting on the table for 10 days or if it was just picked and the different color stages, how much gas it has in it, like everything. I'm like a nut about this stuff.
Does that affect you in your food shopping?
100%. I mean, I'm in the store for like 2 hours, bro. It's bad.
Me and my sister send each other food that's not in its proper aisle. So like we'll send each other a picture of like strawberries like in the cereal aisle. And I'm like, see, and she's like, someone's gonna eat those. Yeah, so I understand the obsession with food. So
yeah. So it's
that's cool to have.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it'll keep you away from the bad stuff.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
To wrap that up in a long story short, I worked with this company and I was a purchaser. I was purchasing $250,000 to $300,000 a week in produce. Wow. And I was also managing the division as well. So operations management. I learned everything you can learn about business with this company. It was unbelievable skills, but I was burning the candle at both ends. Okay. I was working overnights for like 6 years. I was going to work at 8 p.m. at night. I was working 12 to sometimes 17, 18-hour days when we were in our infant stages of that company. I was, when I first graduated college, I think I was 220, 230 pounds. I lost like 25 pounds in the first year of this job because I was so just depleted of everything. At the same time, I was dating a girl in Boston. So every other weekend when I wasn't bartending till 4 a.m, I would either drive or take the train up to Boston. I was all over the map. I was drinking excessively. I was trying to make everyone's birthday party, wedding, event. I was everywhere, and I thought it was what I needed to do, to really expand my network, to be there for people and be Mr. Reliable and Mr. Dependable and all that stuff. I got to the point where I was finding myself. I wasn't drinking like every day or anything like that, but when I would go out on like a Saturday night, I would hit it hard. And it was something that I wouldn't recover from for like 2 or 3 days. And my workouts were affected, my sleep was affected, and all that stuff just kind of accumulated. And I got to the point after many struggles in my life with death and family matters and things like that, where I was like, this is not serving the purpose that it once did. It was fun for a little while for me, and I loved it. And I had great times with my friends and these different people that I was with. But I'm in a different phase of my life now. I want to get engaged soon. I want to buy a house. I have a place in Stanford, which was great. I started renting that out. And I'm like, all right, start a new business. Got a couple of different things drummed up. I was doing personal development speaking starting in 2018. And I was so passionate about helping other people, but I was also like kind of a phony in some regards, because I would go out there and I'd be able to pump you up. I'd be able to give you some tangible skills and takeaways. Don't do this. Maybe try this route, blah, blah, blah. But I wasn't fully living it in alignment with that message. So I really just got to the point over the last couple of years where I was like, you know what? I need to step away from this stuff. I stopped drinking. Like, now I'm 100 days. I haven't drank at all, but over the last 2 years, I really haven't drank that much. It's something that I don't find fulfillment and fun in anymore. I'm not saying I'll be sober the rest of my life. I do enjoy a good drink here and there. But right now I'm on this just crazy kick of like, all right, let's try to go a full year of not having a drink. And as I'm doing that, I'm finding that all these new things are revealing themselves to me. Things that I've always wanted in my life, things that I thought never were tangible. And is it because I'm not drinking? I don't know, but I'm stepping more into the group of people that I think I need to be surrounded with to get to where I want to be and help them where they want to be as well.
Yeah, and the drinking thing's a weird one because it's so culturally acceptable and it's so culturally promoted, and it's such a weird stage of your life where like you do go out, you drink, you party, you do the whole thing. But then as you start to shift away from that stuff, you do get the, hey, have a drink. Hey, have a drink. Hey, have a drink. I haven't had a proper beer in probably 2 years. Like, I haven't had a drink. I think I went to my parents' house. My dad poured me beer, 2 sips out of respect for my dad, whatever. But sit down and order a beer at dinner, I haven't done that in over 2 years. And that was the only thing I do, is pretty much like, was never an alcohol drinker, just beer, whatever, 2 beers at dinner, beer here, beer there. And then I had a conversation actually with a heart surgeon, one of the biggest heart surgeons in the country at jiu-jitsu. And we started talking about like athletic brew. And he was like, yeah, I stopped drinking. He's like, I have a glass of wine at night, 2 glasses of wine. And the cognitive difference of not doing that versus doing that is tangible.
Oh, yeah.
And then I had Dr. Andrew Williams on the podcast. He's an emergency room doctor. And same thing. I don't drink. And I was like, interesting. So if two doctors who are way smarter than me are not drinking, I probably don't need to. And I was never a big drinker anyway. And it just, but again, you go out to dinner and people are like, oh, I'm like, I don't drink. And they automatically think, like, you have a problem. And I just don't drink. It's not my thing. It's interesting that you shift away. You get out of college and you enter this kind of limbo stage of life, right? And I think that that's one of the harder stages transitionally, especially for guys. And I don't know what that experience is like for women. I don't. I can only speak on the man's behalf, but you're in this weird stage where like you're not, like, I remember saying like, I'm not a man. Like, I wasn't a man. I was like a dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was a dude at best. Because what does it mean to be a man? Right. And I have a specific moment in my life where it's like a line of demarcation where I was like, oh, for me, being a man is responding to life and not reacting, not being reactive to everything that's going around. There's a sense of stoicism that comes with that. But there was a particular moment in my life where there was a line in the sand where I was like, oh, I'm no longer a dude. I'm a man now.
It was like a one instance thing.
It was a one moment thing. I was in interacting with someone, and the traditional version of myself would have reacted in a certain way. And I caught myself, and I was like, this person that I'm engaging with in this moment almost expects me to behave and show up in a way that confirms who they are. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sow my oats in who I am, and I'm going to move forward in the way that I think is best for me, and not allow their external expression on me impact me on how I'm going to react. And I caught myself in the moment. I was like, oh, it was a light bulb moment for me.
And that's like stoicism.
I guess so. Yeah. Right.
Like not emotionally reacting to things.
Yeah.
Jocko talks about this all the time, which I'm obsessed with, is like the emotional reactions. Like that is just the immature thing to do. You know,
Sure.
The real power in responding to people is not reacting emotionally, things like that. You know, staying true to your core values, your roots, you know, what you believe in. And it's weird because I think when you don't do that, it seems like it's the worst thing in the world to do. But once you start doing it, it's like, how can I not do this?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It becomes the baseline of how you move through the world, you know, and that could be, I remember I was driving to a concert with my buddy, and someone cut off, and he's like, how are you not freaking out right now? I was like, for what? And he's like, and this is an old friend of mine. And he's like, how are you not like, and I was like, for what?
Yeah. Like what's going to happen?
And he's like, well, I was like, for what? What is that actually going to do? Nothing.
It's not going to help you.
It's going to waste my energy.
Yeah.
It's going to burn me out. I was at the supermarket, long story short, and the woman just wasn't helping me. I said, you know what? I'm not going to let this happen. I'm going to move on, and that's it. And there is power in that, but it is a weird stage in that, you know, post college, and so many of the guys, you know, in any group that you sit around with, placate to the norms and the expectations of what their parents wanted or what society deems as successful, rather than finding a path of alignment and moving forward. So what were you doing besides the non-drinking? Was there any journaling, practicing, or meditation that kind of put you back on that path?
Yeah. So in 2017, I started a new business, which is my commercial cleaning company, All-in-One Solutions Commercial Cleaning. It was something that, like, how the hell am I starting a commercial cleaning company? Like there was no like real tie to it at all.
Yeah,
It was just more so of like, okay, this just makes sense. I want to start a business, and it kind of panned out that way.
Sure.
When I started that business, I started to think differently. I started to think like, okay, if I really want to be successful and get away from my whole, you know, the rat race and the 9 to 5 and all that stuff, I need to really start to think as a CEO, you know, an entrepreneur, someone that can lead a group of people, you know, rather than just someone that's participating in those realms. So I started listening to podcasts, and there was 2 guys I was living with at the time, Bradley and Teddy. I was down in the Bronx, and we all just were like in this building phase of like, okay, like we were still going out here and there, but it was more so of a focus on like, we have to just do what the hell we want to do right now as far as like our passion, our purpose. And we leaned into that a little more. So all we would talk about was business. Like there was no conversations about anything outside of business. We didn't have a TV in the place. And that was also when I was living in Yonkers too. I got rid of my TV. Getting rid of the societal pressures and those norms, the quote unquote norms that people, you know, think are the normal, was something that I had to redefine for me. What is the real norm for me? You know, what's reality look like to me? And it was a long time. I'm still unpacking all of this. You know, I'm still working to get better at this, but it started in 2017, listening to podcasts. I ended up going to the 10X Growth Conference, Grant Cardone's, down in Miami in 2019. That was a weekend that changed my entire life. I had 12 guys that were supposed to come to that event with me. Little by little, month by month, as it got closer and closer, guys bailed, dropped off, this and that. And I'm like, you know what? This is a non-negotiable. I have to go to this conference. Like, I need this conference. I go down there. I end up meeting like 20 different people that I've never met before in my life. I saw a couple of people from college down there. There was just a ridiculous amount of just positive energy, and also paired with just the event, the speakers, the takeaways that I had from that weekend was like, this is the shit I need to do. Where has this been my whole life?
Yeah.
And you're surrounded by a different group of people that aren't watching the news, that aren't, worried about the whatever the hell the new thing that people are stressing about is every day. They're focused on all the positive stuff and shifting their lens rather than focusing on the negative. They're focusing on the positives and the opportunity side of things. So I just became obsessed. I was literally a personal development addict, just podcasts, books. I did start my journaling practices, and I've been through different phases of that where I would do a word of the day, and I would have a word that I would focus on for that day. Every single morning I would do this. Just be like 5 a.m. I would meditate. I would go through my goals for the day, like kind of like an Andy Frisell powerless type of thing.
Sure.
And that's changed a lot over the years too, but it's just something that I think I leaned more into as I started to develop my brain and matured a little more emotionally as well.
Hope you are enjoying the show. If you are, do me a favor, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast wherever you're getting it. iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube. It is greatly appreciated. Yeah, the emotional awareness and having an emotional perspective on yourself it's super important. I couldn't agree with that more. And it's interesting because you mentioned the distractions, but the distractions are what's culturally promoted, culturally accepted. And when you start to step outside of those norms and expectations and watching Netflix and binging this and eating dog shit and all this stuff, you become the pariah. You become the outlier in this weird way. And so many people, like, to exactly what you're saying, is like, yeah, I'm coming to the conference with you. I'm in.
I'll be at Agora.
I'll be right.
Where are you?
Right. I'll be there. I'm there. And it can affect you in a way, if you allow it to, that will become a different internal dialogue, right? Well, what's wrong with this? Or why aren't these guys coming with me? Or whatever. But you have to allow yourself to stop that. And again, that's the emotional awareness piece where you could say, they're in their place. They're doing whatever they think is best for them. I have to do what's best for me. Mm-hmm. And culturally, we look to presidents or gods or gurus or bosses or CEOs or influencers to be our outlet to feel like we are doing something. You could read all the self-help books. You could listen to all of the podcasts. You could journal every day, but are you taking actual action towards achieving your goals? Because there is something inside of us that says, well, if I'm talking about it, if I'm talking about going to the 10X conference, it's kind of like I'm going. Yeah. Or if I'm listening to the Rich Roll podcast or reading Finding Ultra or listening to Rogan or whatever it is, it's kind of like I'm doing that stuff because your brain is still immersed in it. But once you take action on those thoughts, it becomes a completely different relationship with them.
I think that's one of the biggest problems right now with society and the social media and the phones and the internet is like, there's so many, I can't remember, somebody talks about this. It might be like Andy or Ed Milet. They're like content junkies, but they don't take any action, which is why Dave and I started a company called Action Cultivates Excellence, because it's such a piece that I think everyone forgets about. It's like, yeah, you can read all the books and journal and meditate every day and cold plunge and work out and whatever. But if you're not actually taking action in whatever, direction your life is in, whether it be in a business, at your home life with your family, in your relationship with your kids, whatever that is, you're just someone that has all this information and nothing to do with it, and that's the biggest problem, in my opinion.
I think having all that information is important because it gives you an opportunity to apply that information to your own personal life. And what I've learned through, the men's group and just connecting with like-minded individuals is that everyone has the same root, right? We all have the same root, and the expression of that is just different, mm-hmm. right? And in the men's group, I've seen it, and you've been in a couple of them, you see it. You all of a sudden, one conversation, there are these little boxes that everyone is experiencing, whether it be parental relationships, spousal relationships. Am I a good father? Am I a good employee? I don't make enough money. And everyone's in these boxes, no matter how successful, no matter how unsuccessful, no matter what color skin, what financial bracket, what zip code, we're all experiencing the same exact thing, but expressed in these different ways. And that's this beautiful connection that we all can have with each other if you show up in a way that's vulnerable, if you show up in an uncomfortable position, if you go to places that I don't know anybody, but I'll figure it out.
And I think the hard thing to do is to do that when you don't have your support network, your people you grew up with. You know, we talk about this all the time. It's like the guys that we've been meeting along the last couple months, years, whatever it may be. You're going to see that these guys are supporting our ventures more than the guys that we even grew up with, and it's very disheartening at first, I think. Like in my opinion, like when I started a couple of different companies, like even the cleaning company, which is like a funny one, like they'll have these businesses and they want to get a cleaning service done and they don't give me a call. And like in the beginning, I'm like, what the F, dude?
Yeah.
And it pisses me off. But I got to the point where with the restaurant, with Ace, where it's like, you have to let people be where they're at. You're not going to be able to drag anyone along with you, you know, and it's fine. It is fine because people are dealing with all different crap in their life and no one is on the same exact path as you are. And who are you to judge what they're doing with their choices, you know? And I got to the point where like, look, if you don't want to come to the retreat, the events, or whatever, that's completely fine. You're going to do whatever is good for you that you feel is best at this time in your life. If you want to do this, I'm here for you. And I want the best for you. Same thing with Agora, I'm sure, is like, there's guys you probably know that need it so bad. And the goodness in your heart is like, I want to drag them here. And some people you can. And they'll get there and they're exposed to it and they're like, shit, I've been missing out on this. But other guys and or other people in general, you're not going to be able to drag them there. And at some point you have to say, why am I pulling this rope still?
Yeah, there was one buddy of mine who was at one of the more recent men's groups, and we were talking afterwards, and he's like, I just going to that space made me realize I need to go to therapy. And I was like,
amazing.
Whoa.
Get the chills.
I got the chills too. I was like, whoa. You know, like, so now you're on a path that like, and dude, you gotta come on, man. Come on. And, you know, I knew not the goodness of my own heart, but I just knew that it would serve because you know what, to your point earlier, I need that. You know I need the relationships with the people that are above me in some regard, right? It becomes, I'm shifting in my mindset more recently of, you know, it's the age-old question. It's like, is it who you know or what you know? And I've come to the conclusion it is a ladder. What you know gets you around who you know. Then you learn more. Then that gets you to teach you what you know. Then that gets you around who you know. And it becomes this rung ladder. And it's this beautiful relationship through knowledge, through experience, through conversation that you're able to level yourself up. And I think, in my opinion, that intrinsically we are all looking to be better, but we stop at certain floors of the building because of discomfort, because of, you know, our own insecurities, because we seek validation and, oh man, how am I going to be received if I start crying in front of a bunch of guys? And especially as men, again, don't know what the women's aspect of it is, but from a man standpoint, the vulnerability, showing up in a way that's putting yourself out there, it's scary in some regard, but when you tap into that part of you, which it's the golden thread for me, when you tap into it's like, well, I can't do anything else. And beyond doing myself a disservice, I'd be doing other people disservice.
Yeah. And that's the thing where it's like, God forbid you were to stop, right? If you didn't open Agora and the conversation that we had about fathers that one time
Sure.
there,
yeah,
that was a ridiculous conversation. Insane.
It was absolutely.
And it all started with your check-in of, okay, how are you feeling after our meditation? And, you know, just to give a little context to the audience, is like, we were doing our quick breath work. We did some box breathing in the beginning, like you always start with, which is amazing. I freaking love it. And you do a body check-in with everyone. And it's like, how are you feeling emotionally? You know, check in. And I gave 3 different things. I think it was like fulfilled, accomplished, and sad. And it was like a weird dynamic.
Sure.
Because I had a great day, but I also saw someone that brought up my father that passed recently. And it was like, shit, man, that's like that different reminder for me of like, oh, he actually did pass away. And like there's different times where you feel it and different times you don't as much. And I touched base on two of the things. And then the whole group goes around and you would check back in with me one last time. You're like, hey, you had said sad too. You didn't explain why. Why are you sad? And I started talking about it. And the entire group of like 8 or 9 of us ended up all talking about our relationship with our father, which some of those guys needed that shit bad.
Yeah, I was one of them who definitely needed it bad. And it's funny because, you know, you as a father myself, you show up and do the best job that you can, you know, with your skill sets. And, you know, I've done the reverse engineering of my parents, both my parents, of why they show up in the way they do, right? Love them to death. I have amazing parents. They're beautiful, wonderful people, but they could only show up in the way that they could show up, right? So now my job as a father is to take the baton, right? And see the holes in my father's father game, which we all have them. We all have them. Wonderful man. We all have our holes. So my job as a father is to be a better father, right?
Build on those.
And my son's job is to be a better father, right? That is the job of the father, right? Is to see the child, to push the child, and to cultivate the child in a way that allows them to be better versions of themselves, therefore better versions of you, right? That's the whole point of, in my opinion, being a parent, right? It's for them to look back and go, okay, this is where he was great. This is where he fucked up. I need to fill those holes. Take the good, fix the bad.
Yeah. It's something that I think people that are like merit-based people, athletes, they see that I think pretty easily, in my opinion, all the conversations I've had of like, let's build on this, right? Let's get better. Let's fine-tune these skills, jujitsu, like honing in on that stuff. That's things that to guys like me and you probably are like, duh. But there's so many people that I think they forget, they lose sight of that stuff. And that's why you have different family trees that maybe they get worse. You know, maybe people go down worse paths and things happen, you know, different ways. But I think that's why all this stuff is so important. This podcast, Agora, Ace, all these different things are so super impactful to others because it's like, let's bring this to the forefront. Let's make sure people know about this so everyone can get better. Not just me, not just you, that everyone has these different tangible things to take away and say, all right, let me work on this. And there's no excuse not to have those tools now because everything is at the freaking touch of your fingertips.
Right.
You know, you've got a video, you've got Google, you've got books, you've got everything that you could just literally have at your disposal. So it's really on you. To say you're not equipped with the tools, that's on you. You know, the action piece, yeah, that's the hard stuff. That's the doing the work. That's the difficult shit. But the actual information consuming and getting that stuff, will it take time? Yeah. But you can't say that you don't have access to it, you know?
The accessibility is huge. And then again, to your point, the application of that information. For me, a big part of it, I talk about all the time, was sensory deprivation. And you know, I was wanting to do it. And I remember I thought to myself, well, why don't you want to do it? I was like, I'm afraid of what I'm going to think in there. And then I stopped myself and said, well, now you need to go, because those thoughts are happening, whether I'm aware of them or whether I interface with them, they're happening. It's just now I'm just afraid of them. So I literally in that moment, I booked a call and I went and got an appointment and I went and floated. And the experiences that I've had in the sensory deprivation tank, and it could be meditating. I started with meditation, that I was just kind of sitting in stillness and interfacing with my thoughts, and whether they be labeled as good thoughts or labeled as bad thoughts, they're just thoughts. And I don't have to enact or engage in them. I just need to observe them and allow them to pass me and say, okay. And then I take those thoughts and reverse engineer them to the best of my ability. Well, why did I have that thought? You know, it's like, you ever have something just like spur up in your mind out of nowhere? Like, where the fuck did that come from?
Oh, yeah.
And like something triggers something, and it's like a fucking squirrel running across the street. Like, oh, man, that time I hit the raccoon in my Volkswagen. I'm like, you're like, what the fuck? Right? But that's all like this in-depth neurological pathways that have been carved out over time that are affecting the way you're showing up in the world in this moment. So I need to interface with those thoughts, reverse engineer them, and now have a better relationship with them.
which is so hard, I think, for a lot of people of pride, of, people that are scared to show their weakness and things like that, is like, if you're gonna have these thoughts, you got to explore them, like you're saying. And if you don't explore them, they're eventually gonna somehow come up later down the road. Like even grief right now with death in my life, it's something that I knew from the jump that I had to face it. I had to attack it right away. Feel the pain, feel the hurt. It sucks. Yeah, it's brutal. But if I don't deal with this now, it's going to show up in 10 years of my life when I'm a father, when I've got boys that I'm raising or daughters and things like that, that I'm going to be in worse shape down the road than I would be if I were to deal with it now, And this is something that like my girlfriend, she gets a little crazy with me with this, because like sometimes if we fight, I'll want to remove myself.
Yeah.
And for me, like, I do need that space for a little bit of time to where it's like, let me just chill out. Let me breathe. Let me meditate. Let me calm, whatever. She wants to deal with it right away. And for her, it's so good because she gets it out. For me, in those type of situations with my relationship, arguments, things like that, I need a second to unpack those. And, I'm going to get to those. It's not going to be in a week or whatever. I'll do it the next morning or that night or whatever. But people that just completely push it off and don't attack those things, don't explore those things, you're in a world of hurt down the line.
Hey guys, just want to take a quick break from the podcast to talk about something I'm super passionate about, and that is men's mental health. For those of you who may not know, I am a certified life coach, but I prefer the term journeyman for hire. And 4 years ago, I started the Council of Dudes, a men's group that has monthly meetings to lean on each other, to have open and honest conversations, to build community. So if you're a guy and you're looking to find like-minded individuals to help you see your blind spots and point out some insights and perspectives they may have in their own life, head on over to vinnybrusco.com, click the Council of Dudes banner, and sign up and join the council. Yeah, and it is very difficult to realize and recognize that we're all flawed, and it's so easy to point the finger at someone else. It's so easy to call that one an asshole, this one's a bitch, that lady behind the counter at the supermarket's this and all. It's so easy to do that. It's so dismissive of people and their personal journeys and what they're going through.
Yeah.
And you truly don't know what someone's going through when they walk in their home, when they close their eyes and out. You don't know what their day was comprised of. And I think a big part of my own, we just had the opening at Agora. I don't know when this podcast is going to come out. We just had the opening at Agora, and everyone who showed up was so beautiful and said such wonderful things about the space and about me. And my mom was like, oh, they said such great things. I said, I walked away from it. I was like, I'm getting better at taking compliments.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on it. But I think the end all be all is God recognizes God. I see the good in people, so people see the good in me,
Mm-hmm.
And that is the mission of all of this. If you could look at someone and say, oh, that's just me in another body, then how can I treat you like a piece of shit? How can I show up in the world and be dismissive of what you're experiencing?
We've all had bad days, right?
Yeah.
It's like Dave Regina just talked about this on a podcast recently where he was like, he was out somewhere randomly and he had held the door open for some guy that was behind him. And the guy didn't say like, thank you. And I used to be like this too. And he's not like this at all, but in the moment he had like absolute lapse of judgment. He held the door open. The guy didn't say anything. There's another door. Holds the door open like even longer now. Like,
a harder door hold. He's like, I'm gonna fucking hold it.
You're gonna say thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And if you know Dave is a very big dude.
Oh,
he's not
huge.
He's not a meek little guy who's like holding the door, and like Dave is a very big individual. So it's like hard to miss him.
He might break the handle by opening that thing.
Right. Well, hold his door.
He's a monster. But so he held that second door, more intentionally, more impactful, whatever, in hopes that the guy was going to say thank you. And he talks about this on the episode where he actually said something to the guy and was like, "You're welcome," or something like that.
Sure.
And the guy was like, had his head down. He was like in the dumps, whatever. He looks up and he goes, "Sorry, man. My mom's been in the hospital for a couple of days or whatever." And Dave's like, "Jesus, you never know what anyone's going through." And in that moment, the guy that didn't say thank you is not the asshole. Dave is the asshole in that moment.
Sure.
You know? And he had that reflection of like, shit, you know, we all have the lapse in judgment at times.
Of course.
But just being aware of that all the time, you know, as much as possible, at least, like we all have our own shit, man. And life is not easy. Vin Maselli talked about this at the A Summit. He opened it up and he's like, nobody knows what the fuck they're doing.
When you realize that, I had that realization years ago, and it was like presidentially.
Yeah,
I was like, no one has any idea what the fuck we're doing.
No.
We're just pulling from other people and our experience. And then you kind of like, I know what I'm doing with this thing in this particular case. But if you really break it down and reverse engineer it, no one has any fucking clue. We don't even know what we're doing here. Nonetheless, what the fuck are we doing on an everyday basis?
Yeah, and I think for the go-getters, the achievers, the people that want better for themselves, you're going to continue to open those doors of uncertainty, right? You're going to keep pushing down that line of like the problems become bigger, the uncertainty becomes more hurtful, impactful, like it's tough. But if you're comfortable with those doors, opening those things and exploring the depths of uncertainty, of, you know, worry, doubt, all that stuff, you're going to just get to the point where like, this is normal, you know, same thing in jujitsu, right? Like when you're in those tough situations, like, what do they tell you? Dude, breathe through it. Don't tense up, be fluid, you know, all that stuff. People don't realize that. And I think that's a big turning point where people can be successful, or they hit that wall and they can't move forward anymore because they're halted by that.
The unknown is a very scary thing. You know, the darkness, we joked around when we were talking about the workout. I was like, I want to puke tomorrow. And we're like, yeah, let's go to a dark place. And it's funny because jiu-jitsu is a great vehicle for that, where guys will joke around like, oh no, Vinny likes the darkness. I'll have a guy who's 220, 240, whatever, sitting on me. And I'm just like, here we are.
Cool, calm, collective, baby. How are we gonna work
right. Like cue the Simon and Garfunkel, like, hello, darkness, my old friend, right? Like, but that comes from sitting in the discomfort, right? Sitting in the sensory deprivation tank and having these compartmentalized ideas and thoughts and Rubik's cubing my mind and going through it and sitting in the discomfort and the unknown. I mean, why are kids afraid of the dark, right? It's the unknown. There's nothing there. So when you go into a space where you're deprived of, I mean, even in this interaction, there's so much going on right now. Our muscles, our bodies, our seats, my back, your back, you know, like the lights, everything, the sweat drip, you know, everything is going on. We're constantly stimulated, constantly, and even more so now with phones. But when you remove everything, I mean, everything, your body weight, light, sound, and you're just a vessel. When they compare being back into your mother's womb, when you can go back into the vessel, and all of a sudden you're just you're in the darkness, you're in the unknown, you're in the woods. It's like, now what do? You know, Mike Tyson has
learned to love it too.
You learn
if you can,
you get a different relationship with yourself in it, right? Mike Tyson has, I quoted it last time, but Mike Tyson has this quote where it says, "It's a very scary neighborhood up here, and you're all alone." And I'm like, God damn. And it's true. When you're alone in your own mind, and that's the relationship more important that you need to harness. That's the relationship that you need to refine and focus on. And then every other relationship becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, man. I think there's something to say about intentional discomfort, intentional adversity, you know, getting in that cold water, doing hard workouts, all that stuff that we do on a daily basis, guys like me and you, that's preparing us for these dark times that are going to come. You know, when my father passed, it was a lot different dealing with that versus when my friend OD'd 3 years ago, or 5 years ago at this point. I wasn't emotionally advanced up at that point, you know, and my father's a lot closer than these other people that passed in my life. And I dealt with those in such a shitty manner because I didn't have the tools. I wasn't comfortable with the darkness at that point. I've explored the darkness many times and I love the darkness. I get there intentionally all the time now so that when adversity comes, which it will, I am prepared for it. I'm more prepared than I would have been, you know? And people that don't explore those depths and they get bam, blindsided like a T-boned car accident, they're fucked. They're screwed because they didn't build and work on those skills along the way. You know, life ain't easy, and there's gonna be things that are gonna happen in your life, whether it be in your family, your career, your business, everything. There's gonna be stuff that blindsides you. Okay, but if you have tools to prepare yourself when that stuff comes, you're gonna be way, way, way further along the line than people that don't practice those things.
Yeah, and in opening a business, my mind would be polarized in two separate places, and it would be pulled into, well, what happens if no one shows up? What happens if no one signs up? What happens? And it's easier, right? I think our defense mechanism in our mind wants to protect us, right? It innately wants us to be safe and comfortable and cozy and warm, and those are wonderful tools. Those are great things, right? And as a parent, you want that for your children too, which is a really fucked up, dichotomy there, because it's like, I want my children to be safe. I want them to be comfortable. I want them to be well fed and all these things. But I also know I need to instill some struggle. I need to get you need to get a little grit out of it. And that's a weird existence to balance between. But in opening the business, I was in a place where I was, what happens if no one comes? And I was like, what happens if everyone comes?
Exactly.
Right? It's the yin and the yang, right? What happens if it's successful? What happens if it flops?
Yep.
Right? And the reality to both of those current states of thought is, I don't know. That's the unknown. That's the darkness. The darkness is on the other side of the thought of, well, if it's successful, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this. And that's all future projections. It's not right now. Or if it flops, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this. Those are all future projections. It's not right now. What I do know right now is I don't know. And I have to be okay with not knowing. And again, as you start to cultivate this relationship with yourself, and really, in your case, you call it God. I call it God, more so comfortably now than ever before. As you start to have a better relationship with that, the unknown, the relationship with yourself becomes a little bit more tolerable.
Yeah. And I think it doesn't have to be God or the universe or whatever, but even just a faith and belief in yourself. I think for me, the biggest common thread that gets me through all these things is like, number one, I know I'm in control. I know that if I bet on myself, I will figure this shit out. If my business plummets, if I lose all my money on this gamble of a venture, whatever it is, what's the worst that's going to happen? Am I going to lose my health? Am I going to die? No, I'm not. Like money, it's like we said, it brings you freedom, and it's something that I'm striving for every goddamn day. But it's also something that we can make back, right? These big bets, these big ventures, these different things that we all want to do, they're scary as shit. And that doesn't eliminate the scary factor. It's still there. But having the faith and belief that things will be okay. If all goes south, things will be okay. You'll figure something else out, I talk about this a lot with like my relationship, like early on in relationships, when people are new to each other, they always have that feeling of like, oh, what if this person cheats on me? And like that, it's like a scarcity mindset, really.
Sure.
I have the polar opposite. I'm like, if this person cheats on me, that person was not meant for me, and I'm going to be in way better shape having that person out of my life at that point, because I could be more aligned with where I'm supposed to be.
Sure.
And my girlfriend like couldn't understand that for a while, and she finally gets it now of like, I got it now, because it's like you're living in alignment. You're not living in scarcity. You're not worried about the what ifs of the bad things, because what ifs and all those bads, they will come to a certain degree. Right. But if you live in everything will be okay eventually, it might not be right away. You might not fix that problem, find a solution right away, but eventually you'll get there. You'll find a problem to solve. I don't know, man. I just the full belief that like everything happens for a reason it's so cliche, but for me, like I live by it.
I think it's interesting because as you start to open your eyes to the world that's around you, the magic starts to reveal itself.
Mhm.
And that magic is in literally every single moment, every single blade of grass, every single, it's like, it's super cheesy, but the reality, to me, the reality is it's fucking magical.
Mhm.
And we, as children, we have that innately built into us. And I see it with my kids. My son's 4, my daughter's 9. They're innately magical. The world is fucking magical. My daughter, it's becoming less magical because she's 9.
Yeah.
And now culture and now school. And now this girl said that thing and this kid did that thing. And that's a really weird, fucked up, existence to have. But in my son, the world's magical.
Yeah.
The world's and my daughter still, the world's still very magical, but I see it slowly seeping. But it's slowly getting out. But the magic behind it and the serendipities and coincidences, these are all things that if you start to tune in and you start to harness them, they start to become more and more frequent because they're always happening. It's just a matter of if you're dialed into the level and the frequency that you're receiving. Are you being the receiver of the magic?
And a lot of times you're not ready to receive, and I think there's certain points in my life. I talk about this at the summit too, where it's like there is all of that magic around you, but a lot of the times you're not able to receive that because you're in a different mind state. You're just not there, and if you're able to open your eyes up a little more and really look for, what's meant for you. Ed Milet talks about this, the reticulator activated system.
Mm-hmm. Sounds right.
Not a science guy.
Yeah, it sounds good. Sounds right.
It's the red car thing. You buy a red car. I have a red car now. Anytime a red car drives by, you see that damn car now.
So it's from my understanding, it's called the frequency illusion, also known as Bader-Meinhof. So it's the idea that, it's the pink elephant, the red car.
Yes.
It's the thing, like it just keeps on showing up in a way that you never noticed before.
So if you're looking for the people that are going to be talking shit about you, that are negative doubters, this and that, you're always going to see that.
Yeah.
You're always going to find it.
Yep.
But if you're looking at a different lens and you're wearing the different sunglasses here, where you see all the possibility, the good in people, that's what you're always going to be seeing rather than all these faults, the negatives. And that stuff affects you internally. And those wheels are turning differently when you're looking out of that positive lens versus the doubt, the negative, all that stuff.
Yeah. When an older version of this show, we were doing it on Major League Gaming, me and these 2 other gentlemen, the 2 co-hosts, if you want to call them co-hosts or other, whatever you want to call them, whatever. We were doing on Major League Gaming, and which is a pure gaming network, right? It's a big network. It was great. So they wanted to do some, non-gaming stuff. We got on the network. We were doing the show there. And I remember the first show we did, the chat room's going crazy. It's like, who the fuck are these guys? What the fuck are they talking about? Bring back this game. And there's some positive comments. Oh, these guys are funny and all this stuff. And I remember I was watching it with some family, like, oh God, these comments are so brutal. I was like, yeah, but look at the good ones.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, for every 5, who the fuck are these guys? There's one like, oh, these guys are funny. Oh, this is cool. Good job, Major League Gaming. Another 10. Fuck these guys. They suck. So it is a matter of, where do you want to put your energy? Do I want to put on the negative, who the fuck are these guys? Or do I want to put on the positive, like, oh, these guys are like, and if it's 1 for 5, whatever it is, there's still the one. Yeah. And in, the Bible, it's, the old, where 2 or more gather in my name, I'll be there. So, if you could affect 1 or 2 people through the A Summit, if I could have a council of dudes meeting and have a guy walk over and say, I realize I need to go to therapy, that's enough, right? That's enough. It's paid itself, right? And now it's just a matter of compounding interest,
100%. I mean, we had our workout with Lululemon on Sunday, and one of the guys who he had came up to us and he's like, yo, I'm XYZ days sober now. And day 1 was the summit. So that right there in my head, I'm like, dude, this guy was battling with an addiction that he was ashamed of, that he couldn't talk about. And now look at him, 2.5 months or whatever it is now, sober. he thought it was never possible. He struggled doing it a million times, but he's got this group of guys that's supporting him and uplifting him. And it's not like any of us are doctors or what, like we don't know what the hell we're doing. We're just going and cold plunging and lifting weights together and talking positive to each other every day. That's all we're doing. But this was someone that never had that. He had people that were bringing him down, pull the crabs in a barrel syndrome, like there's so many of those people, but when you're able to shift and find that different group of people that will push you rather than pull you down, drag you down, that's when the shifts really start to happen.
Yeah. You mentioned something, and I've been wanting to ask you this, and I didn't know the right time, and I don't want to put it in a position where we're filming a podcast, but I really feel compelled to ask you. You mentioned, obviously, your father passing, which had a very big impact on you, obviously, no question. And the thing I wanted to ask you from the first day I met you, and you had mentioned that, was, what is one thing that you wish you would have said to him or asked him? My father's up in age. We're all gonna pass. It's gonna happen. I meditate on my death all the time. It is the stoic idea of, meditate on your death. If you feel comfortable sharing it, I want to put you in a position, and I could probably cut anything out.
Open book. Yeah.
What is something that you wish you would have said to him, or something that you wished you would have asked him?
I think I wish I would be vulnerable enough with him. We talked about this at Agora that night, where some of us have these internal walls and barriers up with our parents, with our relationships, our kids, or whatever it is. And I felt in my internal gut that I had that with him over the last couple of years. I don't know why. I mean, we always had a great relationship. He was an amazing, amazing father, like awesome. But internally, I felt like I kind of had that a little bit, to where like I would hold back some things. Guys talked about this at the Agora night as well. Like sometimes, like telling your dad you love him is like, it's like,
yeah. One guy,
giving him a hug.
Yeah.
It's like, why is that
Why is it so difficult?
It's crazy, but and especially for like guys like me and you that are like in this space too, of like in the personal development world, the vulnerability, the this and that, but like we still battle those things. And I have battled those things with my father. I did. I wish I would have just told him everything that I really did feel. I love you. I appreciate you. You are an amazing father. It's just, I've said those things over the years, and I've written him cards, birthdays, and Father's Day, and all that stuff. And we've had awesome interactions with minor things, but I never really sat him down like this, face to face, quiet the music, and it's like, yo, dude, I love you, man. I thank you so much for everything.
Yeah.
It's a moment that I think you don't realize often, like when someone's going to be gone. I mean, my dad was 62 years old, 60. I'm going to get shit from my siblings on that. I'm not even sure.
Every fucking day.
Yeah.
What the fuck's the matter with you, Sean?
Low 60s and
Low 60s. That just
low 60s.
sub 66.
Yeah.
I know 65's halfway. I got it. Right.
It's something that I never anticipated happening. This was a completely freak thing that he passed away on, just like, it was in 26 hours. He got sick. He was in the hospital. 26 hours later, he passed away. You never know, as cliche as it is, again, like when someone's going to go, when that time ends, when that clock is up. And to cherish those moments every time, man. It's a difficult thing to do because life is so busy and we have so much going on in our personal lives, raising your family, trying to get further down your career path, being a friend to others. There's so many just things happening always, but to slow down, to find stillness with the people that are really important to you is something that I highly advise everyone does, because you truly just don't know when that clock is going to end.
Yeah. It's, again, the relationship with death is the unknown at the end of the day. It is the unknown. And it's a hard thing to, and as a parent, for some parents, I can't say all, I can only speak for me as a parent, you're always trying your best. You know, you're always trying to be, and the reality is you're gonna fuck up your kids in some way, shape, or form.
Totally.
You know, you're gonna show up to the best of your ability to their games and to their plays and to everyday moments. But at the end of the day, we're all still flawed, right? And I think a bigger piece of that is allowing your parents to be flawed humans and accepting them and still loving them unconditionally, even though they're flawed. And that's how I feel about my children. I tell my daughter all the time, my son all the time, like, you can come to me about anything and I'll never be mad at you. I'll never be mad at you.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a hard relationship to build and stoke those fires, but it's not. It's so pure, and it really is the job of the mother and the father to see the child unconditionally and loved. And then I feel like we get to a certain point in our age where you have to look back at your parents in the same way.
It's just funny, which I'm sure you see. I'm not a father yet, but I'm sure you see this all the time of like, when you were a kid, you could look back on situations which like probably don't come up often in your head, but like you could look back on things where it's like, oh, like they screwed up here, right? They didn't deal with this the right way. But then now you're in their shoes and you're like, damn, I botched this one.
Yeah.
You know? And you have to have be able to give your parents and others grace because you know they're living in a different time when they were raising us, and we're living in a different time than our kids and our offspring will be, you know, when they raise their kids. So it's the world is always evolving. It's always going to be different, but you know, giving people grace and just allowing them to be the flawed humans, like you said, that we all are, you know, is something that's so important because it's like none of us are perfect, dude. You know, we're all going to screw up. I don't know, man. I think the another thing that's like super important to me, where you know that wall that I talk about with my dad that I felt that I had. I was aware of it. I was super hyper focused on it the last year of his life, actually. And it's been on my mind for about 2 years, I would say. And the last year of his life, I had brought it up to my girlfriend and I was like, this is something that really bothers me. Like, I don't call my dad enough. I don't check in on him enough, whether it be pop at the house or whatever. And like, sure, all of our interactions were great when we were together, but I didn't do it often enough. And I was super focused on intentionally doing that more often. And at the point of when he passed, am I anywhere near where I wanted to be in that realm? No. But that last year, I was more focused on, I was more aware of it. I would call him more often. I would tell him to come check me at the restaurant. You know, just those little interactions were way more frequent than they were in previous years. And that's a blessing in itself. So I think people checking in internally of like, what really bothers you? And if it's something that you don't give a shit about, a person or whatever, discard it and figure out what really is important, who's important, you know, and focus on those things. Because if you're going to worry about all this BS that's not going to matter in 5 years and 10 years and 20 years, you're going to lose sight of the important stuff now, and you can't get time back.
Yeah. And the question really is it ever enough? You know, is it, when it comes to parenting, when it comes to being a child, is it ever enough time? You know, when you lose someone, I lost my grandmother, who in the last few years of her life, I was very close to her, like thick as thieves. We had great conversations. You know, is it ever enough? You know, you'll always have those regrets, but you know, if you could look back and look at the better times rather than looking at the lack, again, that lens shift, right? Rather than look at the lack, but look at the quality and the substance that was there during those times. I think that's at least a healthier way to move forward and navigate through it.
Yeah.
Rather than just being like, oh, well, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. And again, that relationship with death is such a, it's so unknown. It's so scary. But at the same time, it's also beautiful, right?
Yeah.
And it's a inevitable experience that we're all going to have.
All of us. Yeah.
Hey guys, just want to take a quick break from the podcast to share a project that I'm working on, Agora Social Club. Welcome to Agora Social Club, the Westchester's hub for guys to gather, connect, and unwind. In the last 6 years, I've been facilitating a men's group called the Council of Dudes. And within that 6 years, I've realized that guys need a place where
where they can get together, connect, and build community. A place that's not the gym, that's not jiu-jitsu, that's not the bar, but a place where guys can come with no ego and grow and develop together. So here we have our chess table. We're gonna be having monthly chess lessons and our take a book, leave a book library. Some of these I've read, some of these I haven't. Quantum physics to personal development to fiction. We also have our record player area. In the last few years, I've become very obsessed with jazz music. And if you don't know how to play vinyl, no big deal. It hooks up to your phone via Bluetooth. We have artwork from California to local artists. We have these small little work tables. So if you want to hang on the couch and get some work done, you can just come pop them open. And we also have our little workspace here with quotes from Muhammad Ali, Albert Einstein, Theodore Roosevelt. We also have our coffee bar, small fridge, and more quotes and artwork over the wall. Head on over to agorasocialclub.com, sign up for our free 7-day trial, and with that, you will get a key fob. Scan your key fob, and you have access to this space from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. So if you're a guy in the Westchester area and you're looking to gather, connect, and unwind with like-minded men, head on over to agorasocialclub.com and sign up.
It's just crazy because I think like there's so many people that that I know that haven't experienced like a close, death or a parent, a sibling, a grandmother, and I've experienced a lot of that. And I feel like I've even as a young kid, some of my closest friends, brothers, and things like that, 19-year-old kids passing away, tragedies, these horrible things. It's always gonna hurt. Right? Like it's not even like I'm
supposed to.
I'm further down the line than a lot of people because I've dealt with it more, but it's always gonna sting. And I think, like you said, like being able to focus on those positive things, the good times, is really what pushes you through it all. Every morning I get in my ice bath outside and I say 2 prayers to myself, and then I talk to my father in the morning. And I just thank him. And I'm like, dude, thank you so much for providing me with the life, the tools that you've given me to impact and lead others. I love you. I miss you every day. It hurts every day, but I'm going to make you proud. And I focus on those positive things that he gave me rather than the shit that sucks when I'm going to get married, when I'm going to have kids and he's not there and my kids don't know who their grandfather is. That shit hurts. And it's always going to hurt. I feel robbed of time with my father. You feel robbed of time with your grandmother, whoever it is that you've lost. That's never going to change. But what you can do is focus on those good moments and the great stuff that they left you with.
And I think, my daughter will say like, "Oh, I never met your grandmother," and I'm like, "You never met her physically, but you've met her in interactions with me. You've met her in, interactions with your mother, who obviously met my grandmother, not obviously, but met my grandmother. You met her through your grandmother, and although tangibly it's hard to recognize that, there is this expression of energy that still comes through the lineage, right? And that energy expression could be traumatic or it could be beautiful, My grandmother is Jewish. I would say the blessing of the wine, at dinner. I taught my daughter that, my uncle taught me that. So there's still, and we don't celebrate the holidays as much as we used to. And obviously when she was around, we did it more, but just the fact that my daughter will take that with her, my son will take that with her, keeps my grandmother alive, and that's still, like we were talking about before, that's the magic. That's the magic that we lose. That's the magic that culturally sucks out of us. But it's our responsibility as leaders, and I think as men in our embodiment of men, to keep that magic alive, not only for kids, but for other guys. Guys lose, women lose, people lose that magic. And for people who can tap into that magic, I have these 4 mantras that I've been joking around with, but it's like, don't lose your dinosaur. Magic is real. Follow the golden thread. If you build it, they will come. Those have been my 4 mantras that led me to Agora, that got me a gold medal in a jiu-jitsu tournament. And the more I lean into those 4 things, they all are interwoven. Don't lose your dinosaur, because we lose that as children from Step Brothers. We lose that. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be an actress like my daughter. We lose that because it's like, nope, you're not going to do that, right? And then the magic is real. Like, tap into that magic. Allow it to cultivate something out of you. Following the golden thread. Find that thing in you that pulls you. It's a different thing than pushing. It pulls you forward. And then if you build it, if you lean into that pulling, if you lean to that golden thread, it will come to fruition.
Yeah, and it's something that like also like the childlike thing where you're having fun, like you said, like your son, he's always seeing the magic, he's seeing like the goodness in things. He's
not all the time. He's an animal sometimes.
Yeah, but they have more of it than adults do.
Yeah,
for sure. I try to remind myself that all the time of like when I'm mad or I'm pissed off, I'm struggling with something of like, okay, dude, what do you love? What do you laugh about? Do something fun. And my girlfriend calls me a big kid. She's like, you're like a big little kid.
Yeah.
Because I try as much as possible to be freaking like just funny and
play.
Crazy the way
play.
Yeah, the way I was. And it's like that is innately in you. It really is. And people lose sight of that. And I think that's when people become miserable, when people don't find joy in life anymore. It's when they lose sight of all that stuff.
Yeah. What's the old expression? We don't get old because we stop playing. We get old, or we don't stop playing because we get old. We get old because we stop playing.
Yeah.
And that's the reality. And play doesn't have to be, it's funny. I did this program called Healing Your Father Wound with a therapist buddy of mine, Mikey Brackett. And part of it is doing something you love to do as a kid. Like go do something you love to do as a kid. And for me, I loved playing with my toys. I was immersed. I was in my own world. I could be there for hours in a room by myself, playing with my Ninja Turtles, happy as a pig in shit. My daughter's the same way. And it was funny. We got the assignment that week. And I was like, all right, well, I love building Legos as a kid. I love doing all that stuff. I'm going to play with Ninja Turtles. My son's obsessed with Ninja Turtles now. And I'm in the room with my kids, and they start playing. And I was so present for it. I didn't even engage in the play. I just watched them play. And I was like, there it is again. Yeah. It's like that scene in Hook, like, there you are, Peter. Like, it's like that realization of like, you're there underneath all the soot and the dirt and the trauma and the experience and all the frustration. You're still in there somewhere. You just need to find a way to play again. And when I go on runs in the trail, I pretend wolves are chasing me. When I'm in doing jujitsu, and these expressions of play are what allow us to show up in the world in a more playful way.
Guys, like this, to the same token you're talking about with kids and that playful in you and all that, like we 100% lose sight of that as adults. But with guys, especially through the ACE network, we focus on finding that grit, right? That dog in you. And how do you do that? You remind yourself of the way you were when you were training as a football player, as a wrestler, the crazy shit you used to do that would make you feel like you were a superhero, right? That you were nuts. For me, it's like I always focused on the Black Mamba, Kobe Bryant's alter ego. I always had that within myself. I would focus on DMX music. I'm obsessed with DMX. I have a huge picture of DMX in my office. Anyone that knows me, like to the core, knows like X is like me. He is in the blood.
I love that.
Flesh of my flesh, blood of my blood. It's like DMX all day. Like I cried when he died. Like I was upset.
That's great.
But I always tap back into that of like, okay, when you were in those dark places in your life, what were you doing? You were training, you were listening to this music, you were doing this, that. And we try to remind our guys through the ACE network when we do these different trainings of like, yo, let's go chop some freaking wood and carry some damn logs in the wood.
Who's gonna carry the boats?
Who's gonna carry the boats and the logs? Like we try to do this stuff because I think society will push you away from that stuff. And there's this thing that's going on now where it's like it's not that cool to be like a big masculine dude anymore. And it's like, why? Why is that not cool anymore? For me, we try to tap into that stuff because that's what makes us feel good. And as leaders of businesses, of groups, of other people, it's like they're not going to be able to tap into that themselves if you don't have that in you yourself, So we try to remind each other of that by doing these difficult, hard things. So it's not just with play. Like play is 100% one of them for me as well. But also that dog, that grit in you, remind yourself of who the fuck you are and, where you're going to be down the line is from the daily habits and practices that you do.
Yeah, it's funny. My wife will jokingly say, you like going in the cold plunge because I'm like, I'm fucking on the plunge. I don't want to go in. And she's like, you like going in. I'm like, I like the man I am afterwards. And I like that I have to fight myself to do it. Like there is something about that grit.
Oh, yeah.
There is something powerful. And the thing is, the grit and the play are the same thing, right? Because if you don't have a healthy relationship with either one of them, you could be ripped. You could be the best shape I was ever in my life. I was the angriest person I've ever been. You know, I was doing CrossFit, six pack, but I was fucking angry. I was so angry, you know, and you could dial into the grit and use it as fuel. But do you have a healthy relationship with the grit? Do you have a healthy relationship with the play? Or are those still just expressions of something else that's going on that's not resolved in those dark places? But going into the darkness, going into, man, I got to fight through this shit, can be fluid, can be, can be harmonious with yourself, but you could still tap into that version of yourself. And it's important that guys do, because you're right. There is this diluted aspect of society that is diluting what men are, right? And if we dilute what men are, then what are we left with? And it's not toxic masculinity. It's feminine can be toxic, right? Anything can be toxic. It's how you want to adjust that lens and what you want to put on it, But yeah, I agree. The grit aspect of things is so important to cultivate, guys. That fire in your belly that just drives you to dig deeper and find one more round on the mat, or find one more push press, or one more step up. And then when you're done with that, you're like, oh, like our workout today, like we were done with, like, whew, man, we went through the darkness together.
100%.
And having that, when I got my life coaching certification, I never liked the term life coach. I thought it was just pompous and arrogant. I'm like, who the fuck am I? I'm a journeyman for hire, right? Like, here, I'm going to walk you to the cave, but you're going in it, and I'll be outside. And that's kind of like what we, with the workouts and with the conversations. Like, I can't take you through the shit, but I could be here when you go in, and I will be here when you get out.
Yeah, there's I don't know, man. I think people just don't understand how to find that peace, that stillness in the darkness. Like even that cold plunge we were just in before, like Vin looked over at you and he's like, dude, you're like in like Zen mode right now. And like for him, it was kind of like, whoa. And to me, I'm like, oh, dude, I get that. Like that's like every morning, that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I find so much peace and just the stillness in like that uncomfortable ice bath. It's something hard that you do, but you end up getting to a place of where it's like, yeah, it's difficult to get in. You get over the hump, and now you're in it now. And what is it doing? It's providing you benefits.
Right.
And it's getting you better.
Right.
And that's with all the stuff that you do, the intentional discomfort, outside of doing something stupid shit. You don't want to like go crash your car and it's uncomfortable. Right. But the intentional discomfort of stuff that's going to push you forward and things that are going to get you better, finding peace, finding stillness in those hard things. That's really like for me where it's like, damn, I am firing on all cylinders when I'm zoned in on that.
Yeah. And those things. And when you're done with those things, that's the benefit. The benefit is like, yes, sitting in them, the darkness, the discomfort, the cold, the 260 guys sitting on your chest, full mount. You're like, God damn it, this sucks. But the benefit of it, because in those vacuums, right, in those vacuums of discomfort are where you gain the experience to engage in the world of discomfort. Like you said earlier, like I am well equipped or better equipped than others with this new discomfort, right? It's still discomfort. Reverse engineer it. No offense in any regard. The discomfort of parent dying, very different. I get that. But or this discomfort, that discomfort, this discomfort. If you reverse engineer it to a neurological feedback loop in your mind, if you looked at it on a scan, it's the same thing.
Same thing.
Right? Like getting in the plunge and having my fucking heart rate spike or whatever it is, it's the same. It's anxiety and excitement. They're the same thing, right? When Agora was up, I was like, feeling kind of anxious, and I was allowing myself to step into that space. And I was like, no, dude, you're excited.
Yep.
Allow yourself to be excited.
Yeah. And there's people that have those those problems on a micro scale that are like small problems, and there's people that have those on a big, large scale. I want big problems, you know. Alan Stewart talked about this at his no, at our group, actually, when we were at the sale house. He said one of his biggest goals is he wants to be the biggest taxpayer on land in the state of Connecticut, which is like, what the fuck? That is an enormous goal. That's uncomfortable. That sucks. But what does that mean? That means he owns so much damn land that he has to pay the most tax out of anyone in the whole state. So, like, large goal, uncomfortable. And then you've got people that will think about that with an apartment. I have an apartment in Stanford. I could think about it on a small scale. Shit, I got to pay taxes, this and that. He's thinking about it on a large scale. It's all scalable problems. You know, people, they're going to think small or they're going to think big. I'd rather think big, opening a business, you know, opening a new venture. Let's think about these problems like you said, it's all the same thing inside. My father dying could be the same problem for someone's cat dying. You know, it could be the same problem in their head as it is in mine. Two totally different scales, and it sucks. But like, it's the same thing, the same feeling inside. You know, so why not do it on a bigger scale if you're actually stepping into discomfort? You know.
Yeah, and that scalability thing is huge, and having those people around you that you can learn from and speak to, and having that community and that network of individuals outside of yourself. And there's this great, I forgot who talked about it, but it's like this kind of internal counsel in your own mind. You know, I think about like the Knights of the Round Table, right? And I think about like all the mythological things, and like, who are your knights around your table? You know, like, not sitting at the head, but around you. Who are the people sitting around you? And are they adding to that, right? Or we were talking about earlier, or are they pulling away, right? And it's hard when they're your friends, or they're hard when it's family. And again, it doesn't mean that things have to end, but they need to shift, right? Yeah. It's the same thing as observing your thoughts. You know, they can be positive, negative, good, bad thoughts, but how do you interface with those thoughts in a new way that's healthier?
Yeah, and I think when it comes to relationships, people, friends, it's like, you have to be able to get to a point where it's like, all right, like, this relationship that I have with this friend, I need to put him at a distance, arm's length with this guy right now, because he's not serving the purpose that he once did for me. I'm on a different path. I'm on a different wavelength. And I think people get so caught up in the, you know, the emotional piece of that. Oh, he's my friend. Oh, it's my family. Oh, I can't do that. Look, like, you don't have to just drop someone cold turkey, you know, and they're dead to you at this point. Some people do it, and that's the only way they can. But like, for me, at least, when I'm in those weird situations with people, I put them at arm's length. Look, dude, like, if you shoot me a message, it's not like, maybe I'll take a little longer to get back to you right now, because it's just, you're not important to me right now, and you're not serving its purpose. You're actually draining me of my energy right now. And you have to protect your own peace, because other people, like you were saying before, like, if you allow these outside circumstances to dictate how you feel and affect you inside so much, the person cutting you off and all that stuff, I know it's hard. I deal with this stuff still too. No one's perfect at it. But like, if you really let them dictate how you feel, you're the freaking slave to the world. You know, you're not the person that's running the show. You're just responding to everything, reacting to everything. Like, you have no control over how you feel, the way you go about your life, you know? So separating those relationships and be able to drawing those lines in the sand, it's so important, dude.
Yeah. And it's funny, because these are the problems that people have interfaced with from the dawn of time, and they will always, you know, obviously you're a study of Stoic philosophy. You read Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. It's like, this dude was experiencing these things this amount of years ago, and it's the same shit. Yeah. And it's going to always be a part of human existence. You know, David Goggins talked about the time he looked at his shoes for 30 minutes, and it's like, when that alarm goes off, there are many mornings where I'm like, are you just laying this bad? And I'm like, and sometimes I pop out, and sometimes I have an internal conversation myself for 15 fucking minutes. I'm like, if you would have gotten out of bed 10 minutes ago, you'd already be on your way. Yep. But I need to go through that. And I think having a relationship, and also the realization that doesn't go away. No. You know, you talk to high level performers. You know, I've had so many amazing people on this podcast. That doesn't go away. No. I missed the plunge for like 3-4 days. I got in the plunge. I was such a bitch in that plunge, right? It wasn't easier, it wasn't harder, but my ability to stay in it was less, right? I was usually in there
You
for
just get better at it.
yeah, I was like 3 minutes usually. I was in it maybe for like a minute, 30 seconds, and I was like, I gotta get out. And I was like, the version of me that was doing the plunge more consistently 4 days ago would have fought through that. I need to get out right now, and I would have got the extra minute and 30 seconds.
Which is why it's so important to just stay consistent. And it's the hardest thing to do. It's just stay consistent. Yeah. No,
Right.
like it's the hardest thing to do. But the more you do that stuff, like for me, like that's why getting rid of alcohol for the time being, at least, is so important to me. Cause it's like, I need to be freaking rolling right now, you know? And if I'm drinking the night before, I'm going to wake up feeling a little more groggy than I would have if I didn't, you know, even the meals you eat. And I love food. And this is like probably the hardest thing for me. Cause like, I want to just eat everything that I see.
Yeah.
And I don't give a shit if it's bad for me or whatever. Like I love food. I appreciate taste and the way it's cooked. I'm a cook myself. And, you know, it's
I
very,
heard you're a very good cook.
I'm pretty good. I'll give myself a pat on the back. I'm pretty good.
Good.
Like, but even just that stuff, it's like being conscious and aware of that. Like when I know I got a big day the next day, or whatever, like maybe don't have that meal that you were going to have, you know, maybe eat the cleaner version of whatever that is.
Yeah.
It's something that's, it's an everyday battle, right? But the more that you're able to stay consistent with it, the easier it gets, the better you get at those things.
Yeah. And when I was dialed in on my jujitsu at one point, I was going very consistent. I was like, oh, I don't want to eat like shit because I want to be better. Like it becomes like this mind, body, spirit, like and one feeds the other, right? Like the mind starts feeding the body starts feeding the spirit, and it just becomes this like
it's who you are.
Yeah, it becomes who you are, and you just like, oh, I don't want to do these things because it's going to take away from this feeling of accomplishment and feeling good in this thing I actually really enjoy doing.
Yeah, and I think it's like this might sound like a little culty, but Agora, Ace, these other networks, these people do these things. It's like, it's not a business. It's not a membership. It's a lifestyle. It really is, though. It's a lifestyle. Like we are living this shit, you know, and that's what we're trying to cultivate through these conversations, these workouts, these, you know, these networking events. All this stuff is like, live the lifestyle that you should be living for the goals that you want to achieve or the vision that you have for yourself. And if it's not that, if it doesn't align with Ace or Agora or whatever, no problem. Then go find what it does align with. You know, maybe it's a yoga class or maybe it's something different, a cooking thing, whatever it is, but find your tribe of people that you should be aligned with, you know? And I think people just, they don't have enough community in their life. And it's something that like the human mind needs. Like, you need social interactions. You need people that are there for you, that you could depend on, that can depend on you. You know, that's stuff that just cultivates good things.
Yeah. I forgot where it was one of the Instagram video posts of a podcast. It was like human interaction, or lack of human interaction rather, is more detrimental to your health than cigarette smoking and drinking.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, like, and all the things that have transpired over the last few years with COVID and social media and all these things, like, we are on a trajectory to take away human interaction. We're more connected than ever, but we're so disconnected at the same time. That's an old age cliche right now, especially at this point, but it's very true. You know, in doing the men's group, I realized, and that's what was the whole essence of Agora, is like, we need community. I need community. I need guys around me that are going to hold me to a better standard of being a man. I want to be better. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better father. I want to be a better version of myself. I need to be around guys that are operating on the same way, and I want to bring people along with me.
And I think that human energy is so key too. Like if we were to do this podcast on a Zoom or something, the energy is
it's totally different.
It's different. I'm doing one next week, and it's a virtual thing, and like my relationship with that person is not going to be the same as me and you here sitting in this freaking shed in the middle of God knows where the hell we're at.
It's
but
hot.
Like, yeah, we're going through it together. Here, the energy is here. The vibes are in this room, you know. And people that are just sitting on the other side of a phone, like, sure, you could have, you know, something to an extent.
Sure.
You know, the conversation might click and whatever, but like that human connection, that energy it's different.
Yeah, and the energy is it flows, right? And it's reciprocated, and when you could tap into that energy, and that's something that you guys do over at Ace so amazingly well. And it's not even just in like this physical expression of it, like of workouts and cold plunges. It's also on a level of connection, right? That energetic connection is palatable when you're in that space. And I could testament to it because, outside of that group, I've met guys in the group that have come by Agora, who we've had conversations, who I now talk to on a semi-regular basis, because you guys are creating that energy. So kudos to you and Dave for creating that and cultivating and bringing that to the forefront of what guys need.
Yeah. Thank you, man. And, likewise, because I've been impacted the same way at Agora with conversations I've had with people that I've met there. So it's mutual. But, I think the intention piece is something Dave and I always focus on, is what's your intention for whatever it is that you're doing? Like even this conversation right now, like coming in here, I had to think, why am I here? What am I looking to do here? And, what's this about here? So the intention piece, reminding ourselves of why we're doing things. ACE for us, I always say to our groups when we're starting things, is like, my intention here is to set the foundation for growth for you guys, and in return, what ends up happening is it's this beautiful thing that people have this crazy connection with others, and they do business together and they learn from each other, they hang out. And for me, it's almost a selfish thing because I'm so fulfilled by doing that.
Yep.
So like the intention piece is something that we always try to remind like our group of, like, dude, just do things with intentionality. Don't just go there and go through the motions. If you're going to go through the motions, then go through the motions with a freaking conscious mind. If I'm going to go through the motions, because if I didn't go through the motions of a workout, let's say, then I'd be 1% less better than I would be if I did go through the motions today. And it could be as small as that, or as large as like, I'm looking to impact the world,
Yeah.
So the intentionality piece is something we try to hone in on.
Yeah. And intention's a good starting point for people, and it takes a lot of getting through all the things that we talked about, the darkness, the discomfort, all those things, to find your intention. And it is in this weird way very selfish. I feel the same way when I leave the men's group. I'm like, there was a very standout moment where I came home from one of the groups. I was like, oh, I feel like I just ate a Thanksgiving dinner. I feel so fulfilled.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm chasing. I'm chasing that dragon. And I think if you're intentional with that and you are in service with that, then that's a good dragon to be chasing. And it certainly beats all the other shit that you could be doing.
Oh my God, dude. 100%. And like, I used to talk about this when I was doing my speaking at different schools and stuff. I would say there was this 3-step process: exposure, awareness, action. You expose yourself to these things, it becomes on your awareness level, like you're thinking about that more, you're realizing, oh, there's a new world here, I'm exposed to this. Now you have a choice to take action on that thing, or sometimes people, they don't take any action, the inability of taking any action. So expose yourself to these things, become aware of them, and then take action on it for whatever direction you want to take that thing in. So I don't know, man. It's something that when I have these groups that I go to, like yours and mine stuff, it's like I can't even sleep at night, like, because I'm just so like locked in, man. I feel so good, and I'm just high off life in those conversations, So it's a beautiful thing that we're cultivating, and I think the world needs more of it, whether it be through Agora, Ace, or your own thing, for the audience that's watching.
Yeah, I think finding, as I'm trying to capture the moment right here, or just whatever on the social. But I think you're absolutely right. It doesn't have to be something that necessarily you're doing or I'm doing or anything. It's just about finding your own magic, right? Finding what your dinosaur is, go after it to the best of your ability. It just so happens that the things that we're doing seem to stand the test of time. Physical exertion, cold exposure, contrast therapy. These are things that, they're new here, right? They're new on social media and people are doing. There have been people going in cold plunges for thousands of years. There have been people doing hot, contrast therapy, pushing themselves. Their lifestyle was physical labor, right? It wasn't like sitting at a desk for 11 hours a day, sending off emails, right? It was a physical taxing job. And there was a reward to that, right? On a actual tangible level and on an internal level. And culturally, we've lost that. So we need to create that in our day-to-day lives in order to create the person that we want to be.
Get back to the basics. Get outside. Get away from the phone. Get quiet.
Right? I think Jocko says, like, do jiu-jitsu, run, eat real food, lift weights. That's simple.
It's simple.
It is that simple. Sean, if people want to connect with you and Dave, if people want to find out more about Ace, where can they go? Where can they find out more?
Yeah, so at Sean Degnan, Sean.Degnan on Instagram. Ace is acesanctuary.com. All of our stuff comes out on our social media, Instagram. Typically, it's Instagram, the biggest one. Dave Reg, 2 G's at the end. So any updates on Ace, you can follow Dave or myself. We've got the restaurant, the Sail House in Tarrytown. That's going to be opening up in 3 weeks. We've got some new renovations going on. And if you need your commercial space cleaned, call me up at All-in-One Solutions. We've got that going on as well.
And what's amazing is you've taken, you've alchemized the restaurant, right?
Yeah.
And we kind of had a quick conversation about this a while ago, but you're like, there was a whiskey tasting thing, an event, and you're like, I'm not aligned with this anymore.
Yeah.
And it's so easy for you to just show up in this way and be like, you know what, I'm just going to do this because it's going to make me X amount of dollars, and that's going to be the turnaround. That's the right thing. Or you could say, this doesn't work for me anymore. And the cool thing is you've taken the restaurant, obviously still offering its traditional restaurant services, but now you've used it as a platform in a space with an amazing view, by the way, to do yoga workouts, to do workouts, cold plunges, networking events, dinners. So it has become this hub for you where it may have just been a restaurant and a bill payer and all these things, but you've taken it and now aligned it with your action and the things that you actually want to be doing in the world, which is amazing.
Yeah, thank you, man. It's something that I didn't fully intentionally do that. I kind of started the Ace company with Dave, where it's like, all right, how am I going to balance this thing? I'm like, okay, we're going to do this while I'm slow at the restaurant. And it's like, no, we're actually not. This is going to be something that is going to grow. And I was able to kind of put that together by still hosting events. It's just different events. It's stuff that I'm more aligned with the wellness piece and all that stuff. And what has happened in return is I'm booking people's 50th birthday parties. I'm doing this and that. People are exposed to the space now. They're going to be new customers to the restaurant, and one hand kind of washes the other. So it's been cool.
Yeah, that's the part that we were talking about earlier with that harmonious, return on your investment of energy. So, Sean, I'm so super grateful for today. Today was a great day.
Yeah,
I'm super grateful that we've connected. And I'm excited to see where the next level of this goes. But thank you for showing up in the world the way you do. We need more people like you. And I just know from my experience with you and the group that you're creating and the group you've created with Dave, I've reaped so many benefits. So I would highly recommend that anybody go check out Ace Summit, go check out the networking dinners, check out the events, because I've seen the benefit of just being around these people, and selfishly nonetheless. But I hope that I also bring that to their lives. So thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. This is a great conversation.
Yeah, it's awesome, dude. Thank you. And, likewise, I want to just say that too, because Agora has been awesome for me, and the people and the conversations that are fostered in that space are amazing too. So, kudos to you as well.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me on, bro.